So the British police are getting more ridiculous every day. First, the beginning of the lockdown, they were using drones to name and shame people who were going for walks. Then we started having these random hard left peaceful marches, and they didn't act properly. Their defense was that we're here to maintain peace. And now we have something new. So in today's show, we have our weekly contributor Andre Walker to discuss all this. Hello, Andre. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Surviving. We're getting close to opening of the pubs, reopening of the pubs, right?
Well, I've got to say, Maya, you're looking a little bit unfresh this morning. Do I detect that you were on the lager last night?
Well, let's just say we discovered a local takeaway pub yesterday in London Bridge. That's all I have to say.
Well, I've got to say, me and Mike Graham used to go out drinking all the time in London Bridge. I really miss it. So,
Yep.
Next week, hopefully, me and Mike will be out. You've got to pop along.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to take back control. So what we have is yesterday, these lefties decided to come out again and have a peaceful march. And last week, MPs in Parliament voted to make all protests illegal. So it's actually against the law. And the police are there to enforce the law. But the police came out and actually sort of said, best of luck to everyone going on a march, be careful, don't start anything violent. Let's actually watch a 10-second clip of the Met actually saying this, and then we'll come back.
Good morning, everyone. There are going to be some protests here in London today. First and foremost, we want people to be safe, so we'd encourage people to stay at home. However, if you feel compelled to come and have your voice heard, we'd say please remain socially distant. We don't want anybody to get ill. And more than that, please don't engage in any violence and use your influence to encourage other people not to be engaged in violence as well.
It makes absolutely no sense. It's literally their job now to enforce this law that you can't, whether it's right or not. Protests at this point are illegal. Why are they not enforcing it?
Because the Met is just so weak. I had a friend of mine who used to be a Metropolitan Police commander, which is a very, very top level. Remember, for most of the country, they have chief constables and deputy chief constables. But in the Met, there are various commanders who have the rank of chief constable because the Met is so large. And what he said was, under Sri and Blair in the 1990s, all of the proper coppers, as he called them, got cleared out of the way. And what we've got in the Met is loads and loads of social workers. So look, they're going to crank down hard on people like you and me. And we saw the anti-lockdown protests, just how draconian the police were on that occasion, even with people who were legitimate journalists who had a right to cover it. But of course, once the left come out, because these guys are kindred spirits with them, they're going to go for it. I'll tell you something about a lot of these management trainee police officers at the top of the Met. They're all the same people who were the criminologists at Oxford University who are opposing the statue of Cecil Rhodes. It's all those sorts of people. And I've said to you, Mike, before, that one of the number one things we've got to do in this country is get rid of the quangocracy. We've got a major problem here, which is whichever way you vote, it's all the same people because they exercise so much executive power. That's what we're seeing here. Now, whether it's right or wrong that there should be a protest, personally, I oppose lockdown. But if there's one rule for one, there should be one rule for another. That is an established principle of British policing.
Yeah, because you mentioned when there was this protest against the lockdown, they were very strong on it. And also last weekend, we had the veterans and the people who were trying to defend the statues who came out. And the police brought out the riot units and squads, whereas when it comes to the other side, the BLM side and everyone, they keep bringing out their normal kind of police officers and the community police officers, for that matter. Why are they so? Are they actually more afraid of the right wingers going on marches, or is it just some sort of political correctness that you have to show they're stronger with right wingers?
The big problem we've got is this. The ordinary police officers, I think, are the best in the world in Britain. Now, obviously, there are one or two idiots. There's always going to be one or two idiots. The big problem that you have as police officers, and I speak to an awful lot of them, the big problem you have is you know that your own leadership will not protect you and not defend you. Now, we've got particular problems in the Met and Police Scotland. There are some forces, by the way, who actually will stand up for their officers. Greater Manchester Police, there's always been a great tradition there of them being much more robust. And I remember the riots, what was it, 10 years ago, might be longer now, where Clapham Junction ended up on fire and all that. And in those days, you know, in Manchester were no problems because the police were able to act because they knew their leadership would support them. In London or in Scotland, you've got a major problem, you know, because if you go in and you enforce the law in London as a Metropolitan Police officer, you're more likely to go to court than the guy who broke the law in the first place.
No, you're right. Also, I think it's important to mention, obviously there was an incident last night in Reading. We're not going to talk about it too much, obviously, in this video, but we just discovered that it was an asylum seeker from Libya. So there was a lot of speculations. I don't know, is this a BLM person? Is it the other side? Is it, what is it? So this is what we have for now, and obviously it's a shame that the people who lost their lives and everything. We'll discuss this further when we have more information as well. Yeah, so this situation with the police, because a lot of people have been saying, you yourself have always been saying that, for example, in America, the police are there to enforce the law. In the UK, they're there to maintain peace. I get that. But do you not think it's time for proper police reform to essentially make them slightly more authoritarian, actually, but in a way that they're there to protect the citizens, not the state?
Actually, I disagree. I think one of the big mistakes that we've made as Conservatives, if we've allowed these federations of police. So I'm sitting to you talking at the moment in Windsor, where we have the Thames Valley Police, this colossal police force, where actually there's very little community policing. What I would like to do, and there are some good things about the American system. One bad thing, by the way, is there's no minimum standards. So I do think we have to maintain minimum standards. But what I really like is the idea of the police houses, which a lot of people who will watch this will remember, where your local constable lived in the community, knew the area, and actually, you know, when there was a bike stolen, they knew which little local tow rag had been responsible for it. I think we need to bring that back. And the only way you bring it back is to have local police services for each and every borough and every town. I think you do that. And then what you do is you have things like the Thames Valley Police responsible for the more serious crimes, whether they be the counter-terrorism unit, whether they be the firearms unit, whether they be the rape squad and the sexual offences unit. Those are the guys that you want to have on a regional level. Yep. But I think on a local level, you want ordinary police, because one of the big problems you've got, and I say this in my town, you know, even if we pay extra money for extra policing, it's going to go to what's called a red zone. So there's something called the traffic light system, where you have a red zone, an amber zone, and a green zone. Well, of course, Leafy Windsor is a green zone. So no matter how much extra we pay for policing, we just get the same offering. I just don't think that's fair. No. And I think we need to change that. We need to bring policing back to the local community. And I'll tell you something, Maya, those local police officers in the police houses loved it. You know, they got the house, which was supported by the taxpayer, it didn't cost an awful lot of money, but also they got to understand the community, drink in the local pubs, knew the local guys, good and bad. I
think the police, the whole system has been obviously become more bureaucratic, more complicated, and a lot of people in charge are not really accountable. I mean, even like the commissioners that we've created, the elected roles, are so political that they're not actually there to be held to account properly. And that's one issue. And I think the other thing is a cultural shift over the past couple of decades in the police and the way they recruit the sort of people and the agenda. They are very concerned about the kind of the causes and virtue signaling. And, you know, every police officer has to be pro-pride every year, and they have to wear pink and everything. And it's not their job. The priority should just be protection. And I feel like I've been speaking to a lot of older people who used to be police officers in the past who watch my channel. They are very frustrated. They're saying, who are these people?
Well, hey, look, we have a citizen police, and we kind of invented that concept under Robert Peel. Don't start talking to me about him, because they want to take down his statue. So, but we do have citizen policing. It needs to be policing by consent. Now, look, I don't agree with them going in all guns blazing. I mean that figuratively rather than literally, when there's a protest on. But at the same time, it's about fairness. What British people like is a police service where the rules are really, really clearly defined. You can do this, you can't do that. What you don't like is one rule for one and another rule for another. And I think that's what's frustrating people. You know, if you and I were to have a protest lockdown tomorrow, I suspect we would see a very different policing. How do you say this best? A very different policing offering than what the BLM guys had said.
We'll receive a different type of customer service from the police. Yeah, and I think that's the problem. And there's a lot to go.
But Matt, I want to ask you a question, because during all of these protests, I've seen a lot of vitriol and hatred about you, and I just want to ask you this question: is part of the problem you're the wrong type of brown? Because obviously, being from the Middle East and being a conservative and having this channel, I've heard the Uncle Tom comment. You know, there was a comment the other day by somebody, I don't know who it was, saying that you get paid by racists to do this channel. You know, how easy has it been for you during this period?
It's been fascinating. So I have received, obviously.
So first of all, you don't care.
No, I don't care.
Not difficult.
But I quite enjoy getting attacked. I'm a bit of a masochist, apparently. But no, it's what's interesting is that yes, I get called that. You know, you're not real brown. The second thing I get is I was doing an interview with Al Jazeera a couple of days ago, and the interviewer, because they're very left wing, obviously, the interviewer basically said, "But do you understand, you know, what people go through, the non-white people through getting abused?" I was like, well, I don't like to play my card, but I could say that I'm also brown. I'll receive things, but he said, "But you're not black enough, are you?" I'm like, what the? That's what they say.
But actually, funny you should say that. I was talking about the member of Parliament for Windsor, who's of Ghanaian descent, Adam Afriyie. And look, you know, he gets an awful lot of jib. Yeah. And they never openly say, you are obliged to support us because you're black. Yeah. But you can see there's an undercurrent there. You can see, and I just wonder to what extent it holds people back. Now, you're slightly different because, of course, you know, the Persian community in the UK actually, you know, are fairly educated. You know, they came over as a result of the Shah of Iran being removed from power. But actually, if you are one of these people that's come as a poorer migrant, you know, you don't have the access to education and power and money that the Tousis of this world have.
Yeah, I get that. And there are a lot of issues, obviously, within communities that has to be addressed. But people just go directly towards skin color. It's not that. It's just the standards of living. And it has to be, obviously, addressed. We have a lot to obviously talk about with Andre about the reopening, the easing of lockdown, reopening of the pubs, and some idiotic ideas coming out of Number 10 and Matt Hancock. So obviously we have, for the members of the channel, we have the premium content. We have our video podcasts being posted a couple of hours after this at 8 p.m. tonight. So if you want to join us, the link is right there. It's also in the description, youtube.com/myotc/join. And yeah, Andre, what do they get? You know, what's the point of them becoming a member, getting our podcast?
Well, first of all, I got your membership for free because I'm a YouTube premium member. So I pay for the expensive one that's got all the rest of, the Google Music and all that. Look, the main reason for joining the My Tousi Premium channel is there's so many things we can't talk about here in the public channel because there's these demonetizations and the banning of the videos and all that sort of thing. But if you get on the premium channel, then you can hear us totally unfiltered. And I have to say, in my case, that's worth a listen.
Absolutely, and no adverts. So for the members and for those who want to be a member, we will see you straight out of this on our video podcast. And for everybody else, we'll obviously keep the daily videos free and open to everyone. We'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.